Hi guys, it's Brianna from Red Lips and Nails blog here with my husband Eric and our dog Eamon, and we are planning to bring you your third or fourth or maybe fifth installment of Money Management Monday, and we have a very exciting topic to talk to you about today. It has been a request for multiple weeks, and so we finally want to cover it for you, and we are going to give you some debt solutions.
Yes.
And Eamon, are you going to give some debt solutions?
Yes. How to eat milk bones. How to pay for them.
How to get them for free.
Yes.
Okay, so the first thing that we want to cover is what is the most important way to make sure that you don't have issues with debt, Eric?
Our guest speaker is gone.
Eamon got the boot.
Yes.
He's a persistent
transferred
guest.
parents. Pardon, what was the question?
How...
He's a nut. See what we do with?
He's a nut job.
This isn't even our worst one.
We need a dog trainer if there's anyone out there that trains dogs.
He's hungry. He's saying milk bones. This is not ending well. Eamon, you got to go. You gotta go, buddy. Yeah.
Oh,
okay. Hey, sit down, stay, and don't move for at least 5 minutes. And that's a no. My goodness. Okay.
The question was, what's the number one most important thing when it comes to...
Get out.
When it comes to making sure that you don't get in debt.
Okay, to stay out of debt. Well, typically, it happens over time. It's a gradual...
No, it's to not be in debt.
No, I understand, but to not be in debt, if you're not in debt, you probably don't need to listen.
No, but that's that's what we wanted to cover first before we had a brain lapse with the dog, is that you have to pay your statement balance on your credit card because then you won't be in this problem.
This should totally be an outtake.
It might be the real video. We'll decide. We'll figure it out.
Be an outtake.
But we would think that you should pay your statement balance on your credit card, right? Let's go that route.
Yeah, absolutely. So first and foremost, if you have credit cards, you need to make sure that you're paying attention. The thing that nobody really thinks about is the interest rate that you're charged from your credit card, because the thought process is that I'm always going to pay the statement balance, so that interest rate that they would charge me on that balance doesn't really matter until you don't pay the statement balance, and then you do have to pay that interest. That obviously is tacked on to the outstanding balance that you couldn't pay in the first place, and it makes it harder and harder to actually meet that payment. So always make sure that you're paying attention and pay the statement balance. If you can't afford it, if you don't have a rule that I was told a long time ago that it still applies today, if you do not have the money in your bank, don't put it on your credit card. Right.
That's so hard. It's so hard, and it requires checking your bank account almost every time you make a purchase. Maybe referring back to your bank account before you make the purchase, which is tedious. But...
Or just stick to, if you've watched previous episodes, just stick to your budget that you set up with Mint.com, and then you don't have to check that. You know exactly where you are.
But you have to check your app at least.
Yeah, I mean, you can check an app, but you don't have to check your balance. So it'll do all that for you. Again, just be disciplined. You know exactly what you have. If it's an emergency, I think that's very different. I think that is when a credit card could come into play to help you out with something that maybe you were unexpected, and it buys you a little time to figure out how you can utilize your savings or any other route that you need to go. But
first and foremost, if you are struggling with debt solutions, the number one solution is don't buy it. Just pay... Only spend what you actually have in your bank, and if you cannot pay the statement balance at the end of the month, you spent too much money, period.
Yeah.
So you absolutely must pay your statement balance every month and not incur any interest on your credit card. That would be rule number one. That's the absolute first thing, and if you're having a problem with that, you need to shut down your credit card and just get rid of it and just cash the whole way. So until you're disciplined enough to follow that, no credit cards for you. That would be the best way to eliminate your debt. So let's just say, though, that someone did get into some problems with debt, and they are now, they now have, thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dollars. What's a good solution for them?
Yeah, I mean, and that happens to everybody. So don't think, oh my gosh.
Not everybody, not him.
I'm in credit card
Happened
debt.
to me in college, but.
Just, don't think that, oh my God, I'm in credit card debt, and you have to stay there. You don't have to live that way. So obviously you've got to change your behavior because things happened more than likely that may have been outside of your control. There's always medical bills and everything else. But again, there's certain things you can do to avoid that or minimize the interest that you have to pay. So one of the common things is obviously just get away from a credit card if you can financially afford to do that. If you want some research, some reading material, I would suggest Dave Ramsey. He's fantastic, has a lot of really good ideas and a philosophy as it relates to a cash-based budget. So look into that if that's something that you're interested in. If not, how do you try to minimize some of that interest that you're paying? You can always look at a balance transfer. Obviously, that's a balance on an existing credit card and potentially moving that to a different provider. That may buy you some time. Sometimes they'll give you
to another credit card?
Yeah, to another credit card. So
okay.
That doesn't mean you need to continue spending. First and foremost, you have to change your habits. This is just how you get that debt paid down faster to get back to your normal lifestyle.
And so I understand, what's the benefit of moving it to a different credit card? There's some type of incentive?
Yeah, they want the balance, right? So what they'll do sometimes is say, hey, you can move over a certain amount of money and we'll give you 6 months no interest. Right, for a balance
so you
transfer.
have 6 months to make your payments without incurring that additional interest.
On that balance.
On that balance.
Right? So
not new purchases.
Not new purchases. That's still going to be subject to paying your statement balance. But that transferred balance, there are times where you can get like a 0% for maybe 6, 12 months, whatever that may be. So it's a good money management tip that can help. Another thing that used to be very common if you had equity in your home, I never really suggest against borrowing from your home, right? Because you obviously have to pay that back. But if you did have a very large amount of credit card debt in the past, people, if they had equity in their home, they would borrow against that, get a substantially less interest rate, probably less by at least 10%.
And that's a HELOC loan, right?
Yes.
So I'm learning all
these... Home equity line of credit.
I'm learning all these terms. Can you also explain what equity is, just for the real novice? I didn't know what equity meant. I heard it all the time thrown around as a term, but I didn't really understand what equity actually is.
Sure. It's, I would say like a balance sheet, but just think about this. The market value, what you could sell your home for, less your liability, what you owe the mortgage, that amount, the difference between the two, hopefully is a positive number, meaning the house is worth more than the liability actually.
What you owe.
What is owed, that difference is your equity.
Right. So when he's talking about equity, that will give you an explanation as to what equity is. But so what he's saying is that you used to be able to take a loan out, a HELOC loan, home equity line of credit, against your mortgage. You would refinance your house and get cash?
No, you can just borrow against that equity portion. So you would deal with a bank and they would give you a loan based on the equity that you had in your house. So if you had $100,000 worth of equity in your home, they'd let you borrow,
so you get a lump of cash.
Yeah, you'd get like $50,000. People would pay off the credit card debt if that's how much they had, and instead of paying 20% interest, they were now paying 5%. The benefit prior to the new tax plan was then you could actually deduct that interest on your Schedule A, but everything I've seen as far as 2018, that will go away. So you will not. Now, granted, you'll still save money because you're paying less interest. But the additional benefit of being able to deduct that interest that was paid on the home equity line of credit, the HELOC, isn't necessarily there in 18. But again, it's still not a horrible place, just not as beneficial as it used to be. So those are some options. Most importantly, it really always goes back to budgeting. I know, but it's easy for somebody to say that when they're not in the situation. So I think the important part is get a budget and fix where you are now, and then you can take into consideration how you go about fixing or climbing out of that hole. And so the last thing you want to do is potentially, our guest is back, you want to utilize one of those balance transfers or a HELOC, but you don't change your spending, you're going to end up in an even worse place.
It has to be a behavior change
Yeah.
in addition to these debt solutions. If you don't change your behavior, you're going to be right back in there.
And one of the things that I just remember this, if you're going through that, is don't leverage your future, right? And so don't make decisions today that are going to jeopardize you 10, 15 years down the road.
Even if you're
don't
like,
do that.
I'm only doing it one time, it's just for this month, it's because this bad thing happened. Like, no, cut out, something else has to go. And everybody always says, like I hear people say a lot, I have to spend this money on X, or X. Like, you don't have to live in the house that you live in necessarily, or you don't have to drive that car, or there's different sacrifices that you can make. And so just consider that whenever you're paying your bills and your budget. Like, really, truly go through and objectively look at, what do you actually need? Do you have some really fancy handbags that you maybe are sitting in your closet that you could get rid of? Like, no, I need all of mine. But if I
have lots of handbags that I need to get rid of.
They are in your closet because we have the same closet. But, if we were in a financial pinch, I would sell my handbags. Like, that would be something that he would make me sell my handbags, first of all. But I would voluntarily do it because I'm not going to put our family in a financially tough situation when I have some things in my home that I don't really need. So, it's just a matter of your priorities and looking objectively at your budget and being disciplined. Yeah. Anything else you want to add?
No, I think
it's a pretty good start.
Yeah, I think that's it. If you have any questions, debt is one of those topics you could talk and talk and talk on.
Those are just a couple ideas.
That's really credit card stuff. But last little comment, maybe we can talk about this next time, is be aware the mortgage environment is also changing quite a bit. And so rates have really increased, even though there were historical lows. They're still not high now, but they're significantly higher than what they were probably 2 years ago when you were looking. So if you have the chance and you get a chance, look at your statement and see what your interest rate is, because more than likely those rates are going to continue to increase for a little while until they stabilize. But it's probably something that if you haven't really thought about or you've been putting off, may want to hurry up and look at that. So maybe we'll talk about that next time. And,
sounds good.
We won't have the savage on the show.
We'll make sure we shut the office door so that he can't get in.
Yes.
But thanks, guys, for watching. We appreciate your support. And if you have questions, as always, just email me. Bye.
Email.